Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, and today we're taking a look at a rather exciting update for Crusader Kings 3. As promised before the end of the year, Paradox has released the ruler designer for the game as a free update, allowing us to create the most godly or ungodly of rulers to start a new game with. The ruler designer goes well above and beyond the options of the same in Crusader Kings 2. While some things may seem a little familiar, I wanted to talk about how it all comes together and some things that you might want to look out for. Choosing to start a new game, picking a start date, and then clicking the Play as Any Ruler button now presents you with the option to not just select any title on the map to play as before, but you can also customize the ruler who holds said title. Now, you don't need to play as the ruler that you customize. You can customize literally every count, duke, king, or emperor across the playable world, and then play as somebody else entirely. You can use this to set up the circumstances for failed states, border friction, or unlikely alliances, and you can also use this as a way to establish some compelling storylines in your headcanon as you get started. Keep in mind that any existing family ties and character complications will be removed when you swap a ruler out with a custom ruler. This can eliminate early succession crisis situations, and it will remove any claims that the replaced ruler originally had, as well as any wars or debts that exist at the start of the game. You should keep this in mind, as you will most certainly see a butterfly effect out of such modifications to the world, whether you take control of the customized ruler or not. Again, imagine a ruler who would originally start with 10 claims on neighboring counties or duchies, now all of a sudden starting without any of those claims and having to start from scratch instead. It can completely change the start of the game. The same goes for wars and debts. Wiping those off the face of the earth will make a huge difference to the power structure of various regions on the map. Now, right-clicking on a realm will show you the leader's existing details, if you're curious about them before you start making changes. But, enough talk about who you can customize, let's talk about what you can customize. On the left are all the elements you can change without it affecting the total point cost of your character. While you don't really have to care about points if you don't want to, spending more than 400 points will disable achievements from your run if you care for such things. Note that if you do care for such things, you should turn Iron Man mode on before you start customizing characters. I found that otherwise I would often customize a character, realize I haven't switch the mode, and achievements would still be locked, so I'd have to go through the process all over again. Now, with that said, the fact that these things on the left don't affect the point cost of your character, they will still affect the difficulty of your game, whether it adds to your points or not. You can opt to play as male or female, and you can either randomize or set your sexuality. Depending on your chosen realm's faith and culture, these can be cause for concern. On which note, you are able to change your personal faith to any of the many faiths available in the game, and you're able to do the same for culture as well. Keep in mind, however, this is just your personal faith and culture, and does not change the faith or culture of your domain, realm, or vassals. So, keep that in mind as you make your Hellenic Tibetans up in Scotland. Your faith and culture will cause friction if it doesn't match, just like it would do in a regular game. This is one of the reasons for customizing a larger number of characters rather than just the one you're playing as. That way, using the same example, it'll allow you to make an entire court of Hellenic Tibetan Scots, and while your holdings will still need to be converted, at least your vassals won't hate you. Well, not for cultural or religious reasons at least. Remember, also, that your culture and faith will determine what decisions you can take. So if there are certain decisions you'd like to play towards, make sure you keep those options available for yourself by picking the right culture and or faith depending on which decision you're thinking about. Your name can be randomized based on your culture and faith, or you can get creative, and the dynasty and realm coat of arms can only be randomized at the moment. I really do hope to see the Crusader Kings 2 style system brought back, where you could decorate the quarters individually, you could adjust the fields and the emblems and all that. I would also be very happy to see something more precise and complicated. I'm thinking about those, Call of Duty style emblem creators where people can get really advanced. That would be super cool. But either way, for now, they can only be picked from random sets and those random sets are determined by your faith and culture, and the same goes for your dynasty name as well. And by the way, if you want to change your house motto, you just have to start the game up and go to the dynasty screen. You can click this button here to further customize your dynasty. I believe this was always available, but just felt relevant to mention. Back to the ruler designer. At the bottom in the middle, you can flip to changing your appearance, and this comes in 2 layers. You can go shallow and just change your overall appearance with randomization, or you can take it a step further and get into all the various sliders for each individual physical aspect of your character. I won't go into too much detail here, but you can see that DNA can be copied and pasted, so if you make something you're particularly proud of, you can save it for later and share it with others too. The reason why I'm not going into too much detail here is because it's all just visual, and the customization options are pretty ridiculous. They allow you to change all sorts of details, as you can see on screen here. It's a bunch of sliders, it's a bunch of options, they're very nicely categorized as well, so I don't feel the need to, basically read the screen out to you, but you can see the impact that you can have, for better or for worse. Now, none of these actually have any impacts on traits or anything like that, so you can have a hideous-looking individual, but still give them the beautiful trait. The game will read them as beautiful. But these changes will impact your character's DNA, and that means any kids will carry the physical appearances forward through the generations. Keep that in mind before you make someone particularly hideous, because it might get pretty grating, a couple of generations down. Now, back from appearance, if you look to the right, there are the factors that directly impact your points outside of weight. Age, traits, skills, and family will all affect your costs upwards or downwards. I'm going to mention some of the numbers here and some of the point costs, but keep in mind that this can all change during balancing. But as of now, aging by 1 year costs 2 points, but turning 10 costs 4 points. And turning 12 costs 3, and turning 16 costs 7. Turning 18 costs 6 points, 19 costs 3 points, 20 costs 7 points, and these points continue to rack up at seemingly random staggered amounts right up until 28. Beyond that, aging further applies a negative to the point cost, increasing at what looks like an exponential rate. I haven't plotted the graph, forgive me. Now, depending on your age, you'll be able to choose traits, including a childhood trait, if you're a child, or an education trait, if you're an adult. Their costs are clearly marked in their respective lists, but it's important to note that taking any of the traits that appear at the bottom of a lifestyle tree does not unlock the entire tree for you. It just gives you that final trait without any of the prior benefits from the rest of the lifestyles tree. So if you're planning on pursuing a lifestyle, consider if it's worth spending the points on its end result trait, or if you'd rather earn it over the course of the game. Also important to note is that the older you get, the more lifestyle points you'll be able to spend in your chosen education traits lifestyle trees when you start the game. Think long and hard as you pick traits, if you're being picky for the sake of points, that is. Do you really want to be all that fertile if you're going to have to deal with Confederate partition for the first 2 generations? Do your goals align with being a beautiful Herculean giant? Is it worth spending points on architect if you're not going to build any buildings? Consider also what traits can be passed down and therefore are, in a certain sense, permanent, versus which ones will only be in play for the 1 generation. Congenital traits are not a bad idea to start with, and if you create an entire court of people with good congenital traits, you can rely on marriages in the early generations to get all of those traits into your dynasty, rather than spending the points to start with all of them. Consider also your faith and the faith of those around you, including your vassals. Remember that opinions on sins and virtues are made by the opinion holder based on their faith. So even though you might be of a faith that thinks of something as a sin or virtue, shown by the red and green highlights under the personality traits, the people you need to get along with might disagree, and those disagreements might bring about an early end to your carefully crafted character. So again, be very wary about where you're installing your custom ruler, and what kind of survivability you want to give them, what kind of situations you want to throw them in. If you are surrounding them with people who hate them, you can expect to be assassinated. Now, these will also impact what type of choices will make you gain or lose stress, your health conditions, and random events that might occur from time to time as well. So again, be picky about the traits if you are actually looking to play a certain type of role, because it will have further impacts throughout the course of your game. Now, if you just want a trait to increase your skills, you might just choose to increase your skills directly instead. Again, here I'm going to mention the point costs, but they might change, honestly, within a couple of hours, within a couple of days, over the course of the many years of updates that Crusader Kings 3 is likely to get, so take all this with a grain of salt. But increasing any skill by 1 costs 2 points each until level 5, then 4 points each until level 8, 7 points each until 12, 11 points each until 16, and then it just adds 17 points for each step. Prowess, being a secondary skill, is a little different. 1-to-1 for the first 4 points, 2 points each until level 8, 4 points each until level 12, 7 points each until 16, and then it's 11 points each onwards from there. Now, as long as you're of marrying age, you can opt to be married or not without any cost of points, and depending on your age, you can add a bunch of sons and daughters for 10 points each. Consider the importance of being married at the start of the game, and consider the fact that if you start married and you don't have the option of multiple spouses, you might not be able to make an alliance right off the bat. So take that into consideration when you determine your marital status. In terms of kids, again, take into consideration Confederate partition, if that's going to be a problem. Take into consideration how many alliances you can make with more daughters or more sons. Each of these kids will be born annually from the year you turned 16 onwards. So again, consider your age, consider how many children you want. That will let you know what ages you can expect them to be, how many of them will be of marrying age, how many of them you can educate and mold to your liking still, etc., etc. Again, these can be good for setting up vassals, or for simply having access to a pool of capable alliance makers, plotters, court members, etc., etc., and they'll all be loyal to you because of family ties. Keep in mind, though, that you will not have the house head hook that you might expect. Again, just as a reminder, when you're a house head, any people that are born into the house will automatically owe you because of the house head hook. It is a weak hook, but serves its purpose. Unfortunately, these generated children were technically not born when you were a house head, I guess, so that hook never had a chance to be created, so you will not have access to that house head hook on any of the kids you get through this method. And that's pretty much all there is to the ruler designer in Crusader Kings 3. It opens up a lot of fun options for roleplay, for min-maxing, for experiments, and for just plain goofing off. Create the ugliest, handsome knight, get all the benefits of inbreeding without incest, or start with all the diseases and see how long you can survive. Be a Norseman in Muslim Africa or a Jain in Iceland. Make a matriarchal society out of one that typically opposes it, or prance around naked as the day you were born, starting at the age of 100 and something. Build entire courts of custom kings, queens, and everything in between, and enjoy a few thousand more hours of Crusader Kings 3. I hope this video gave you an idea of what to expect from the ruler designer in Crusader Kings 3. It's free, so you'll be able to check it out yourself as soon as it releases, but I hope to have highlighted some essential caveats and considerations that might not be immediately apparent at first as well. If you have any thoughts, opinions, suggestions, or ideas of your own, feel free to share them in the comments down below, and also don't hesitate to join our Discord, linked in the description down below, for lots of multiplayer Crusader Kings action, ruler DNA sharing, and more strategy and simulation gaming as a whole. As always, a massive thanks goes out to all of my channel members and patrons for supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.